Warning, in this episode, there may be indirect spoilers to the Danganronpa series, Zero Escape series, Ace Attorney series, Paranormal Sight, and Your Turn to Die. There will be no major or direct spoilers mentioned. However, due to the nature of discussing things at a high level, there may be points that indirectly indicate potential story elements. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello everyone, welcome back to a very, very special video. I'm DTM as always, and I have a very special guest. Why don't you introduce yourself, ZzVovG?
Hi there, I am Z's. I have a lot of channels on YouTube, too many in fact, but today DTM invited me on to a very special podcast/discussion, which I am really excited for.
Yes, this has been something I've been mulling over for quite a while now. And I finally got around to doing this because I think it's safe to say both of us are very, very huge fans of like mystery games, death games, killing games. I'm so getting demonetized on this video. But you get the idea, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited because you're also a fan of those types of games too, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. I think like you gave me a tier list recently where you had like a bunch of your games on there that you've played, and I know I've played like some of them on there, but we're talking stuff like Ace Attorney, Danganronpa, 999, stuff like that, and I started I think with Ace Attorney,
Yes.
And I sort of branched out after Ace Attorney because I really liked Ace Attorney. I haven't finished all the games. I still haven't played the sixth one, but I just really get excited over these types of games because they're always written in such a way that is just so fascinating to unravel the mystery.
Yeah, definitely. I think I started in Ace Attorney as well. I think that was honestly everyone's first like exposure to that sort of genre, I think. And I know from there it just like spiraled. And so here I am. Just talking about that with you. Out of curiosity, what sort of like mystery, murder, death games have you played so far?
Okay, well, I guess it would be the first 5 Ace Attorney games. I haven't played Spirit of Justice. I've played 999 and Virtue's Last Reward. Which is the second one. I've played half of Zero Time Dilemma. I never finished it because I got bored.
What?
I didn't think it was very interesting. I'm sorry. The Danganronpa games I've all played, and then iSomnium Files, both 1 and 2, and I think next up on my to playlist is Rain Code. I don't know if you played Rain Code, but that's the one that's next up on my list.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting.
But yeah, I think those are like the main ones that I've played. Obviously, there's a lot more that I have to get to.
Right. I mean, I think when it comes to my catalog, I've played all of the Ace Attorney games since I was a really huge fan. I've only played Danganronpa 1, 2, and V3. I haven't done any of the spin-offs, and I refuse to play any of the spin-offs. I played all
That's
of the...
fair. That is fair. I actually only watched the playthrough of Despair Girls because I'm not spending money on that game.
Yeah. I played all of Zero Escape. Like 9 Hours, 9 Person, 9 Source, I think is like my favorite like video game narrative of all time, and so it definitely has like a special place in my heart for that. And then a smattering of other games, some fan Danganronpa games. Some other games like Paranormal Sight and stuff like that. So who knows? Maybe in like a future episode we'll do like a tier list. But that's like
that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah. So this video presumably will be a first episode in a series. Don't know how long it'll last, but to start with, I just want to like I guess talk about like the overall like structure of like these death games that we enjoy and what makes them really compelling and what makes them really work and what are our favorites aspects about them. And in future ones we will go more deeper, but hopefully this one will be relatively spoiler free. We'll see about that. If it isn't, there'll be a disclaimer at the beginning, so disregard what I said if that happens. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we can start because, again, like we've played Danganronpa, we played 999, and I think it's safe to say like we really enjoy them. And I guess the big question is what makes them work really well as like structurally, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it right now. And I think the biggest thing, at least it comes to my mind, for Ace Attorney and Danganronpa, at least, it's split up into like two different sections, I guess you could say, where they have an investigation period where events of a murder are happening and you're gathering clues and starting to unravel the mysteries in your head, which is honestly really, really fun, coming up with the theories in your head, because a lot of time the game doesn't spell it out for you. Obviously, I think some of the earlier mysteries in some of the games, they're quite obvious. I think it's dummy obvious, especially like the first Ace Attorney case, the first Danganronpa case.
Oh my gosh.
Dummy easy.
11037.
But, you know, they start becoming more... We'll never forget that number.
Yeah.
But, you know, as the game goes on, the mysteries become more complex, and then you start thinking, oh, who's the killer? Who did it? You know, it becomes a lot more fun to think of it like that. And then there's the second period, I guess, which is the trial periods, at least in Ace Attorney and Danganronpa, where it all comes into, like, this very, usually highly dramatized climax between, you know, facing off against the killer in some way, and like proving that they were the ones that did it, and like how they did it. It's so exciting when you just see the mystery unravel itself. Especially a lot of the times, like it just all the clues fall into place at that moment. It's great.
Yeah, like I think having like that period of investigation, again, like that allows for a lot of like context and like just contextual development to happen around the case itself, where you just get like a lot of backstory and information, and then that serves really well once you head into the trial section, where again the stakes become really, really high and super dramatic, especially in like Danganronpa, where it's like, you know, you have like the music blasting and it's like super high effects and things like that, which is always really fun as well.
Yeah, and I think, again, with the investigation period, it does a really good job of developing characters and allows you to, like, it gives you time to get attached to them before, you know, they're gone. Like, what if they're the next one dead? Yeah. Or they're the killer, and it's like, you know, you start getting attached to these characters, and then you start questioning, oh man, I hope my favorite isn't the killer, or I hope they don't die next, you know, stuff like that. Right. Like the way that they're broken up into those different sections are so good.
Yeah, and I think that also gives like a feeling of progression, like there's progress being made once you go from stage to stage. Sometimes it can be a bit much, especially in like the first Ace Attorney, where you have like 3-day cases where, I don't know, I'm sorry if people like them, but I really dislike 3-day cases. I think they like drag a lot.
I think they're hit or miss. Yeah, I would say that. There are some that feel like they're stretched out for no reason, and then others that I think are really good. Like a lot of the final cases are 3-day cases, and I think they work well with them because they're very... Right. Like the stakes are highest in the final like case for each game of Ace Attorney. Yeah. But some of them, like some like the mid ones, like, you know, case number 3 or something is like 3 days long. It's like, okay, yeah, we can just it just drags on. It really does. I think like it's always case number 3 for like Ace Attorney and Danganronpa that just seems to be
somehow
the most like the tedious one that's just like, okay, let's just get this one over with.
Yeah, the typical case 3 syndrome, as we like to call it. Okay, I'm not going to give my opinions on other games outside of that for fear of spoilers, but let's just say, you know, it's fine. Raincoat also have a case 3 syndrome. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really it's funny how consistent that is, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just developers looking for more padding to increase runtime or what, but it definitely is an issue. It's not like I'm usually like okay with it, but I think it really hurts a game, especially on replay, which I guess replay value for these games aren't as high. But, sometimes it's still fun to replay them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh, it's this part of the game.
Right. But yeah, like, again, for the most part, though, the investigation and trial is done really well. Obviously, that's not the only way that these games could be structured, because obviously, like, when it comes to, like, Zero Escape, it's very, like, escape. It's not necessarily, like, solving a mystery. That's the main focal point of progression. It's, like, getting through escape rooms and progressing through the different areas to try to figure out, where you are and why you're there and stuff like that.
Right, for sure. And I think what Zero Escape does really well is it handles multiple endings for games. Like, there's lots of games out there that have multiple endings, right? But Zero Escape handles them in such a way that just goes beyond, like, most other games that I've seen. And I don't want to, like, spoil it for anybody who hasn't experienced it, but it's like those endings are there for a reason.
Yes.
And they're so good.
Yeah.
At, like, making the overall story even better.
Yeah. Like, I normally do not like multiple endings in story, like, quite frankly. Since this is going for my Faye channel, like, I do not like multiple endings or multiple routes in Three Houses. I do not like commit fates, honestly. Most times I feel like stories, like, work better if there were just one route. But in Zero Escape, again, like you said, they handle the multiple endings aspect of visual novels, which is, a common thing in visual novels, really, really well. And it's probably my favorite aspect, implementation of that. Again, not to get into any spoilers, but it handles them really well. Although some endings in VLR, let's just say, I get super mad about.
Oh yeah, yeah. Some of them go interesting. I think the Somnium Files, which is kind of like a spiritual successor to Zero Escape. I think the second game handled, like, multiple endings in one of the strangest ways possible. There's a very big plot twist in the game. I won't, like, describe it or anything, but it was probably one of the most confusing like, multiple ending plot twist thing that I think I've ever seen. And it took me about 2 hours to understand it, and it's just like, wow, this is like, they're trying to constantly one-up it themselves, because it's like, oh, we've already done the, multiple endings are important, but what if we did it, like, even more? And it's like, ow, my brain.
Yeah, we're never ending Uchikoshi's wild ride, let's just say. Yeah. But yeah, like, again, I do think, like, they handle that really well. And also, when it comes to, like, Zero Escape, and I guess Danganronpa 2 in particular, like, the scenario itself, like, them being trapped in a place and having to go through this game, essentially, I think also adds a huge amount of enhancement to the story, because it obviously, like, deepens the mystery. Like, these people are trapped here, they don't know what happened to them and why they're there and such like that, and they have to, like, play this game where their lives are on the line. It just, like, really heightens the stakes really well.
For sure. I think one of the most interesting things about it is that it usually gathers a group of strangers that know nothing about each other. So it makes it really easy for you to connect to all the characters, because they're all meeting each other. Nobody really has, I shouldn't say nobody, but there aren't many pre-established relationships going into the game. And usually it's just completely, all the characters are cut out from the outside world. The entire world exists within this game. Yeah. There is nothing outside of it. Yes. And I think that's what's really cool, because it just feels really, I guess I should say claustrophobic is a good word. Mm-hmm. And you never know what's just coming next, right? So I think, like, this isn't like a major spoiler. This, like, happens in, like, the first 10 minutes of each game. But I know in 999 Zero Escape, they're trapped on a boat. Right, that's like one of the things is like, okay, but there's not that much space on a boat. There's only so many doors and rooms, and it's completely cut out from the outside world in this death game, and the ship is going to sink at some point. So it's a sense of urgency, and I think that's really cool. And then in Danganronpa, it's similar, where they're trapped inside a school,
Right.
And like the way where all these people are contained in like a location can really feel just suffocating and claustrophobic, where it's just a set amount of people in a set like location, and it just, something about it is just really crazy, especially in some of the games where a lot of the locations will open up over time. I think in Danganronpa, it's very self-contained, where it's just all in like a few rooms until like the game progresses. Then you start unlocking more rooms and whatnot. And it's the same case for Zero Escape, where as the game goes on, you get more locations, but you have to work for them. And again, you mentioned like progression, and like that's how I would say like the progression and the way they implement that into the game works really well.
Because like as you like unlock more characters, there's this sense of like you're making progress in the mystery that is this, you know, situation. Like that is obviously like there's information in terms of progression, but like just physically unlocking more room or more like areas to investigate, like just feeds into that sense of, okay, I'm doing it, I'm making progress, we're getting answers, even though most of the times you aren't actually getting answers. Like we're doing it, right? So I do think that, I guess in terms of structure, like building in that sense of like exploration, I guess in a way, in this like closed circle is really effective when, you know, you're just trying to figure out what's going on.
Right, for sure. And I think what Danganronpa does a really great job of is that after new things open up, like let's say in the school, for example, after new rooms open up in the school, all that's going on in your mind while you're going into these new rooms is how is the killer going to like use this room or this new environment to make their murder. And it's like, well, we know the murder's going to happen here in this new location, but it's more just how is it going to happen? And then in the case of Zero Escape with like multiple endings, it's like, is this room going to be super important for an ending? It's just so much foreshadowing. It constantly keeps your mind thinking.
Mm-hmm. I think when it comes to like structure, just purely talking about structure, I think Danganronpa has like the best structure out of like any death game, I guess, because like the idea of, you know, these people are trapped here, they have to kill someone in order to escape and get away with it, and you have this whole trial to vote for who you think is the killer, and you either win and only the killer gets executed, or you lose and all of you get executed. Like that structure just allows for just so much story potential, in my opinion. It's just, the concept is just so good, and I don't know, I need more of that. Honestly.
Oh yeah, I would agree in saying that Danganronpa's structure is great. No, the class trial system is absolutely amazing, and I like how they twist it up sometimes as well. Like there's like specific rules, for example, like, oh, you can't kill more than 2 people at once, or something like that. Yeah. And a lot like the rule specifics that go into the game, which I don't think we need to get into specifics, but it really is It really is like such a good structure now that you are mentioning that, because like I look at you know, stuff like Ace Attorney, and obviously none of the characters really die in Ace Attorney, so it doesn't really feel like there's the highest stakes of all time. Right. Or at least, no, I shouldn't say none of the characters die, but none of like the major characters die. Right. It's always just like, oh, who killed Bingo Blombo? And it's like, we got to figure out who killed him. Was it the clown? Who was it? Oh my God. It's stuff like that. So it's just these like random NPCs that you just don't really care about. It's the other like witnesses and stuff that you start caring about, and the main characters along with you. Mm-hmm. But in Danganronpa, it's different when it's your friends that are getting killed.
Yeah, and I think like, excuse me, like Danganronpa structure, like again, you have like the period where like there's like the daily life, right, where you can hang out with people, you can learn more about them. I think the thing that also makes it really good is that it feels as if each character is not like limited by certain things in the game. Have you played Your Turn to Die, actually?
I have not, but I really want to. I've actually
Okay.
Somebody in one of my servers is actually keeping a streak, and they're like on day 72 of asking me to play it. 72. I admire their commitment. I really do, and I will play it someday. I really do.
Supposedly the final part will be out this year, but I don't know. I'm not holding my breath on that. But I mentioned that because in Your Turn to Die, the idea is that at the end of each round, so to speak, like the characters, the participants, they have to vote someone out, sort of like Survivor in a sense, except
like Total Drama Island.
Exactly, actually. Obviously, it's voting people out to like execute them, I guess, to progress.
Right.
But and when I first heard of that, I thought that was like super, super cool. And it still is. And the mystery is really cool. But the thing that I think dampened that is that every character is assigned a role, so to speak, per round. And depending on the role, that like changes what they're trying to do. Like you have like the seer who can like see other people's roles. You have like a sacrifice role, etc. And I felt like that like sort of limits the character's agency of what they want to do and like makes it less compelling to me compared to just like full-blown Survivor rules, and you can just vote out for whoever, right?
I think I understand what you mean now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that with the characters not feeling limited, which again I think Danganronpa does a great job of making every character seem like they have their own motivations and whatnot. Right. I think motivation is like a huge part, or like just digging deep into a killer's mind. A lot of it is just what's the motive? Why did they kill in the first place?
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things in the first Danganronpa is they introduce motives, like the Monokuma. He will introduce motives for people to start killing each other, and to see people go after these motives, it's really interesting to see, because like, obviously like no character, they're not all just piloting around, are orbiting around the main character, which I feel like a lot of games will do. I guess like a game that we love, Fire Emblem. That's not really a death game or anything, but a lot of the time, there's not many characters that get development in Fire Emblem. It's usually just the main characters, or everybody just kind of orbits around them and goes, "Yes, Sir Marth, I just met you 2 minutes ago, but I will die for you."
Right.
Like all these characters in these games, they all have their own lives, their own motivations, which makes them a lot more compelling.
Yeah, definitely. Although I will say, like, even though I think like they handled the motives of the first game relatively well, I don't think motives in other games were that interesting or that great. Because honestly, I feel like it would be a lot more compelling if, Monokuma didn't need to like compel characters to commit their crimes. It would be a lot interesting if they like did that unprompted, or not unprompted, but like not influenced by Monokuma, so like it feels like they would have more like an interesting reason or like backstory besides like Monokuma showed me something and that made me want to do this or something.
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. And I would agree with you there. Some of the motivations are definitely hit or miss, but I think it's I think a lot of the more interesting motivations definitely come like toward the more like ending of the game. There's like a character archetype in Danganronpa where there's like a rival type character.
Yes.
And they tend to be one of the most interesting characters when it comes to their motivations, because it's always really hard to figure them out. They tend to get in your way a lot when it comes to like the trial periods of the games, and they end up being some fan favorites just because of how important they are to the story.
Right. I love Danganronpa 1. Like, I think it has the best vibes. We can talk about that later. But I think one thing that it was really missing was like an absolutely crazy rival character. Like, compared to like Danganronpa 2 or V3. Like, the characters I'm talking about. So.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I would agree with you. I still like Danganronpa 1's rival, but I do definitely think like when it comes to, I see we're talking about that sense of like disruption or urgency. Danganronpa 2 and V3's rivals were far stronger in that sense.
Yeah, definitely agree. When it comes to like 999, I feel like we're pivoting a lot between those two. Don't worry, there's more. But when it comes to 999, when it comes to like the structure, like, I guess we can compare this between the series, because in 999 you had like the digital root system that would divide like the cast into different like groupings to go into different rooms, which personally I thought that was super, super cool and very thematic with the whole, well, 999 thing.
It was, yeah. I think like, do we need to go into describing what a digital root is and how it's set up, or
I guess for the benefit of the audience, sure, we can.
Because it's kind of confusing when you're first getting into it. It's like, I didn't even know what that is.
Right. So like a digital root is basically, you have a number like 256, right? So to get a digital root of 256, you add all the individual digits together. So 2 plus 5 plus 6. And what is that? Like 13, I think?
Yeah, that would be a digital root of 13.
Yeah.
So
but since that is not a single digit, you do it again. So it'll be 1 plus 3, and then it will be 4. And so 4 is the digital root of 256. I think that's a good explanation, hopefully. I know Faye players are not that good at math, but...
Well, I mean, I guess some of the top players certainly have to be with those weapon descriptions.
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because like usually, I guess for specifically, we're talking about Zero Escape here. All the characters are assigned a number,
right,
and it limits what groupings that you can make in the game. Because you have to progress through a certain door, you need to create a digital root of that number. Let's say the digital number is 5. So you have to create a digital root that would equal 5, meaning that certain members will have to be teamed up specifically to go through that room. So it's not like you can take, this is the best friend character. You can't take your best buddy in there. You got to go with the schemer type character, and you got to go with this random guy. It's interesting how they constantly set up different doors, which again is really good when it comes to the multiple endings of 999, because they're usually grouped up with different people depending on what door you're going to go in through. And like, let's say a different ending will come through if you go through door A or door B. And the system is set up so well.
Yes.
Both like thematically, but also just how it's set up from the very start of the game with like the bracelets that they all have their individually assigned numbers on them.
Yeah, like this limitation, like, I don't know, it just feels so natural in the game, and like it allows you to have very, very interesting group dynamics. Like as you mentioned, like it forces you to have like conversations with different groups of people in different configurations, and exploring that is really, really cool, especially when it comes to like, again, unraveling the mystery, depending on the information you get from these like different groups of people as well. So while it is a limitation, I do think it is one that actually enhances the story by bringing these out in a thematic and aesthetically pleasing and natural way.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think one of Zero Escape's strongest suits, specifically like for 1 and 2 and I guess 3, but I never finished it, is something that they lack. And I think you'll notice this as well. In Ace Attorney and Danganronpa, there are some characters that you could potentially say, I guess especially for Ace Attorney, are throwaway / gag characters. But those there are no gag characters in Zero Escape.
Nope.
Everybody is there seriously. Like, there is nobody there who is just kind of shallow or just like there to die like in the first chapter. Well, I mean, I guess I'm not gonna say it. I won't say that, but okay. The characters are very strong, and nobody really just seems like a gimmick. That's I'll just say that to prevent spoilers.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Zero Escape is really good about that. I will say, I do think when it comes to like VLR, the chromatic door system was not as interesting as the digital root system. I don't know, something about that just felt like less compelling to me compared to like, ooh, we are assigned a number, we have to. Oh, I guess it's because like the colors are like randomly assigned, seemingly, so it doesn't feel like the characters have as much agency as, oh, I am number 5, let's find a grouping that works for this door, for instance.
Right, and I think one of the maybe I said I didn't complete Zero Time Dilemma, but I feel like one of the issues that I wasn't the biggest fan of is it also limited the character interactions to everybody was stuck in a group of 3 in that game. Where in the first and second games, everybody gets to like move freely and interact with each other. Usually they would have like a partner or something, or a character that they're very close with, but it was never like always just those two. It was, you'd split up into groups and whatnot, which was really cool. But a lot of time you'll see like one character from group A and they'll never talk to character from group C. I mean, again, I never finished the game, so I can't say that with certainty, but that was one of my problems. That was one of my problems early on in the game, is just the separation and seclusion, which is fine. But it really felt like limiting for the characters to me.
Yeah, that is an issue in Zero Time Dilemma, I will agree. And yeah. Have you heard of the game Paranormal Site?
I have, yes, I have. Never played it though, unfortunately.
Okay, it's actually like pretty interesting because in that scenario, in that game, basically everyone has like a little trinket with a special ability that can be used to like kill someone if they meet a certain condition, and you get like the person they're aiming to kill to do something. And in order to win, which allows you to revive someone who's dead, you have to fill that trinket with like souls. And while theoretically you can kill anyone to get some, it's very, very little unless they are a participant. And thus, like, participants are incentivized to target other participants with the added bonus that they get their trinket with their special ability and all the souls they collected as well. Yeah, it's really, really interesting.
I haven't heard too much about this game, but like in that very small description, you've already hooked me. Like, I want to go and play it right now. I'm not even joking. Like, that sounds so interesting.
I do heavily recommend it because I do think the writing is, and the aesthetics is also really, really well done. Because, like, it's a free-for-all, right? Like, and not only that, unlike in Danganronpa or 999, it's not a closed circle. You're, like, in a city, basically. And so you get interactions from other people and their reactions to what's going on, which is super interesting. And obviously, like, folks are encouraged to kill each other, which makes things really suspenseful and has that layer of untrust. I will say, like, my one issue with Paranormal Site, besides one other which I will not mention, is that I don't think that structure is utilized as much as it could be. Like, a lot of the game is focused on the mystery of the game itself rather than like participants, trying to outdo each other. There's that still.
I see.
But I don't think it's as utilized as well.
I gotcha. Yeah, I like that you were describing that, because immediately what you're talking about there is it made me feel like, oh, every character is going to be extremely unique in some way, and it made me start thinking about, for specifically Danganronpa and Zero Escape, every character is unique in their own way. Like for 999, every single character has a specific number. That is their number that they are assigned. That makes them unique, and it makes them like, in the case of 999, they can only go through certain doors with groups of people. And in the case of Danganronpa, each student has a ultimate talent or a super high school level, whatever the Japanese calls it. But basically yeah, that's right. They have something that makes them unique, right? You'll have the ultimate baseball player who's really, really good at baseball. So it's stuff like that. And every character can use those talents to potentially commit murder or to help out in investigations. And I think that's really cool when it's not just... I think it's kind of cool when they add like a little bit of spice on there. Where every character has something that's unique about them. Or maybe it's because of those circumstances that they are in. It's like only they could have done this because they are the one that could have... Like, I think in multiple endings... okay. In endings of 999, you realize that there are endings where it's like, I know this character did this thing because like it's that number.
Right.
And I don't want to like say anything other than that. I'm trying to be as spoiler-free as possible here. It's really hard. But it's like you realize that and you're putting the clues together. It's like, oh my gosh, it had to be that thing. It had to be that thing because of this, and you know that, but the game doesn't outright tell you. It just kind of lets you figure it out for yourself, and I love that.
Right. And sometimes like the game can also use that to mislead you as well due to your assumptions. And it's really, really good.
Yes.
Yeah. Like even though like having a number isn't like as a superpower compared to like ultimate abilities or anything like that, I think like the number and also the code name related to that just like, I don't know, makes the characters a lot more unique and interesting, which again, that just comes from having a number and getting a code name, and that's something that seems really small but just adds a lot to the story, which I really, really love.
All right, it differentiates the cast of characters so well.
Yeah. But yeah, again, like really loved how they did that. And I will say, I also think that 999 personally also has like my favorite setting and environment, like, cause you're on like the Titanic basically, right? And it's just really, really cool thematically to be able to, you know, play this deadly game in what seems to be like a momentous piece of history. It's really interesting.
Right, and I think what's so cool about just the setting of 999 specifically being on this boat is that there's also a time limit. Like it's called 9 hours for a reason. There's
right.
It's like the ship that you're on is going to sink in 9 hours. So it's just like throughout the entire game, everybody is on edge because it's like, well, we have a time limit to do all of these things, and then there's even time limits on top of the time limit. So it's just the sense of urgency never goes away.
No,
it really never does, and it's just you're constantly looking behind your shoulder to see who you can trust, and I love it.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Honestly, the setting of these sorts of games, I feel like, is definitely an under-talked aspect of what makes a lot of them good, because like just the vibes in general like can do so much to like the mood and effectiveness of the story. Like I'm going to bring back Paranormal Sight, but the aesthetics of Paranormal Sight, because it's a horror, let's be real, it's a supernatural horror. You're killing people for souls, but like the aesthetic and art design of that, even though you're in a city, just like conveys the sense of horror like really, really well, and makes you really feel that dread and being on edge. Same thing with Danganronpa, like being in what is supposed to be Hope's Peak, and like there's this era of mystery of like what's happening. Is this the real Hope's Peak? Is it not? Like why are we playing a game in this place? And that's one thing I will give Danganronpa 1 compared to all the others. I think it had the best setting and the best vibe compared to
100.
the other ones.
I agree 100%. I think Danganronpa 2's setting is not as strong. I think it like sort of works in some cases, but like just overall, it's because they're on an island. I guess we can just say it. They're on an island.
Yeah.
Which you would think is like, oh, an island. If they're stranded on an island, that could be fine. But like, I think what is contained on that island doesn't feel as suffocating or as like the first game, where it's just kind of like a bunch of alleyways and like a couple open like whitish rooms, and it's just
and it's like a dark neon like hallways.
Yeah.
Because like Danganronpa 2, it's basically like a resort, so it's like not
a resort. That's a better word. Yeah.
And like when it comes to Danganronpa V3, it's like dark as well, but it's also in like a place that seems unrelated to anything. So unlike in Danganronpa 1, you don't get this like mystery of like what happened to this place, that you did in Danganronpa 1. Like obviously there's still the question of how did I get here, but it's not as compelling, I feel.
No, I think when speaking of settings in these types of games, 999 and Danganronpa 1 were definitely the strongest ones in my opinion. VLR I think had a really good one as well.
It was okay in my opinion. Like I'm not a big fan of just a random abandoned warehouse type of vibe.
I mean I guess I can't go into spoilers, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, but
without going into spoilers.
I don't know. Like, I just think, like, again, a boat that's modeled off the Titanic is just like a lot cooler and more thematic.
I agree. I think the first one is like peak. It's definitely peak. Danganronpa 1 like location, it's peak. And I guess like if we were talking about Ace Attorney, those don't really have specific settings.
I mean, it's in California.
That's more of a allegedly
Japanifornia. Yeah, eat your
so funny.
Eat your what was it? Eat your sandwiches, Apollo. Whatever that comic was.
Oh, eat your burgers or
oh,
something?
eat your burgers. Yeah,
Your
yeah.
yeah, enjoy your hamburgers or something. That's so funny.
It's unique. I will give them that. Like, it's memorable to the point where it's now like in everyone's minds. So, again, hats off, I guess.
For sure. And I think speaking of minds, to not like go into too many spoilers, but Isomnium Files, a lot of the locations are based on people's minds. So without spoiling too hard, the main character has an ability to enter people's minds, and inside these minds it's basically a dreamscape, and there's lots of mysteries that you have to solve inside these dreamscapes to get to the bottom of whatever the heck the overall mystery is, to get closer to the killer, or like for a specific instance of like you need to get information out of this one guy that just won't listen to you, so you go into his mind and then you get the answers there. And they're usually presented in like a really bizarre fashion, because obviously it's in a dream, so the developers can be really creative with these dreamscapes and make them super interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And there's just so much potential. And I do think in AI Somnium Files and Nirvana Initiative, like, they do actually manage to do that aesthetics-wise, like, really, really well, which, again, like, I really appreciate due to how it does the story. I'm going to mention Your Turn to Die one more time. I know you haven't played that, but...
No, go ahead.
I think the vibes in the first chapter of Your Turn to Die was, like, so good. It's similar in that, like, spoilers for like the first 20 minutes of the game, the setup.
I think that's fine. I think if it's like the very like beginning of the game, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, but basically you get kidnapped. Oh, what a twist. And you're forced to play this game.
No way, who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, and so you're placed in this location, and the art style is like super dark and minimal, and there's just this uneery emptiness to it where, you know, the only other people are the other kidnapped people, and you're trying to explore, and you're trying to like figure out this, I guess, pseudo escape room to progress to the next section. And this aura of emptiness, I think, was really, really good in the first chapter. But then, like, on chapter 2, even though like the psychological aspects I thought were really, really good, the setting, the vibes, so to speak, was, I think, less compelling because it sort of removed a lot of the impersonal nature that the first chapter had. And then chapter 3, as we start getting more game masters, it's just like not as compelling vibes wise compared to the first chapter. Still really interesting story though, but yeah, I mean, it just goes to show like vibes actually do matter quite a lot when it comes to like just the mood.
Oh, I agree. Especially, and it's not just for us as a player, but it's also for the characters, like experiencing those vibes firsthand, which is like a great example. Because I think like for the example of like Danganronpa 1 versus 2, if you're on a resort, you're not going to be that stressed because there's a lot of things to do on said resort. You can fill up the time. But in Danganronpa 1, it's like, okay, every student has their own room. They have like a dining room, and from the start, that's pretty much it. So like most people just kind of sat in their rooms or just like maybe made like a couple connections with each other, and that was it. Right. That was really, you didn't have anything to entertain yourself. There's nothing to distract yourself. You're just kind of like, okay, I might die any second now, and I just have to deal with it. Right. Yeah. Again, I think even though I personally think I like Danganronpa 2 more as like a story, I think Danganronpa 1 just had the best vibes. And I don't think anyone will disagree on that. It's just really, really well done. For sure. Yeah. Because I guess moving on to like more of the mystery aspect of it rather than the setting, but like, again, vibes really play well into the mystery, which, you know, is what this podcast is all about. Like every game has a mystery, is based on mysteries, and the setting definitely plays a role. And personally for me, I love it when like the characters don't know why they are there. They haven't like volunteered to do anything, or that it's not like in a city where there's just investigation. The act of exploration is the mystery itself. I think it's called like
ontological mysteries in TV tropes. But
Oh, I see you.
yeah, like in Danganronpa or 999, like you have no idea why you're there, and you have to explore. You have to figure things out of why and how you got there, and they have to try who's responsible, and you're trapped in this strange place. But as you start exploring more, as you start figuring out more, you start to get a master of it. And I think like that also ties into progression really, really well as well.
Right. I again, like just driving home the sense of urgency. It immediately gives something for the player and the characters to do, and that is just explore this new space with extremely limited amounts of information on how you got here and who the other people are. It's really awesome. Which it's not really something that you can say for something like Ace Attorney.
Right.
Obviously, Ace Attorney has its own strengths and weaknesses as well, but when it's specifically talking about like the more death game theme, it works best at like in a new location, new people that have never met each other. It's definitely best like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, with Paranormal Side, you're in the city, and I think they do it really well, but, like, the restrictiveness of the environment, I think, just adds another layer of mystery and intrigue that just being in a city doesn't really capture, even though there's, like, some crazy supernatural weirdness going on. Like, the characters know why they're there. They got a trinket. They are trying to do something about it, and they might not know who is spreading all these trinkets or whatnot, but they're participating willingly. And even though it's really great, like I do think some of that intrigue is lost when you don't have characters who like have no idea why they're there or no idea where they are.
Right.
Yeah. So when it comes to like the mysteries, there's generally like two aspects. Well, there's a bunch of aspects of mysteries, but I want to focus on two aspects for the time being. We'll get to who in a future episode, if there is one. But like generally, you're trying to figure out the how, like how. And this doesn't have to be like the overall mystery. It could also be like individual cases as well. The how and the why. For me personally, I think the why is a lot more compelling than the how to me. Mainly because it ties into motivation really well.
I agree. I think I would agree with that, but I think how is also quite fun as well, especially with some of the very, I guess I'd say a lot more elaborate deaths, as in the case of Danganronpa, when it's trying to find like, who done it. There are some very elaborate deaths in Danganronpa that are just, sometimes you look at something and you just kind of go like, how? Like, what? You see, it's like, what is all this? Like, there's so many things, and like a lot of the time, like, there's so much stuff that is just there to mislead you. A lot of the time, being the killer's purpose is like to mislead you. I would say, for V3, Danganronpa V3, the very first case is really strong in my opinion. It's actually probably my favorite first case of the beginning Danganronpa games.
I mean,
figuring out the how from that was really interesting.
I mean, I'll just flat out say this. I think it's the best first case by far in Danganronpa. Like, I don't think anything comes close to Danganronpa V3's first case. Honestly, like, a common complaint about V3 is that it peaked too early because the first case was just that good.
It was really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I do find the how to be super, super interesting, especially in like Danganronpa, where again you have like the play of ultimates, and generally they have like super crazy like things, because again the game structure, going back to game structure, leads naturally well to that. They have to get away with it against a group of people who are also in confined quarters. It's just supernatural, and figuring out the how when like the person tried to like cover it up is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to how, I think initially it gets more people hooked in on the game, because it's like, ooh, this murder happened. How did it happen? And then as you're like investigating, the why becomes more interesting, because you start talking to more characters, you start getting to interact with them more, and you start connecting with them more, right? Because at the beginning, like when people are just dead, it's just like, okay, well, I want to know how this happened. But then as the game progresses, You meet more characters, you learn more about them, and then you start becoming more invested in the why. I feel like the how is a hook, and the why is like the depth of like what people really want. Like when you look back on a lot of the cases of Danganronpa or other games, the initial killing is like the dopamine hit. And then you're like, oh, how did this happen? But like a lot of people just remember fondly is a lot more of like the why people did these things. And a lot of the time, at least for Danganronpa games, some of them it's just like it can kind of be pretty shallow, but there's a lot of like tragic reasons, or really even just sad reasons behind some of the murders, and that is what sticks with people, not so much the how.
Yeah, like, and I think this also plays into why like a lot of people don't like case 3s, because generally the whys in case 3s tend to be a lot weaker than in other games or in other cases. Again, I'm not going to get into any spoilers here, but I do feel that when you say like the why is what sticks, the how is the hook, because like again, the why, we're naturally like, as a society these days, we're naturally focused on characters a lot. And so the why just gives like a lot of insights to these characters and why they would do such a thing. And if it's really, really good, it will stick with people for a while. After like people figure out the how, it's like, oh, that's how it works, that's how it works. But the why is what sticks. I really love that phrasing. Game.
And I think when it comes to those case 3s, like you said, the why isn't as strong. It just feels very... It just feels like game padding, formulaic, and I think it just kind of suffers from that, where it just feels like, oh, we have this many characters, but we need to kill off some, so let's just let's put this one in here, so we get lots of people out of the way. Okay, now we can get to like the juicy stuff afterwards.
Right.
It's always just. I guess I don't know if I should say calm before the storm, but it's usually like once you know that case 3 is out of the way, it's like, okay, now we're getting into the meat of this.
Yeah.
Because they gotta trim the fat of like the gimmick characters, get them out of there, and then it's like, okay, here's the characters that we want to actually tell a story with. Now our gimmick characters are dead. Let's focus on these guys.
Right.
And I think that's where I think like a smaller cast definitely helps. Right. With 999, there's only 9 people, so you don't want to throw away all your characters. Like, you only have 9 to work with. That's not a lot of characters. But for Danganronpa, you have like 16? Is it
16? Or 15.
16, and then you got 15, 16, potentially more or less, because you've got Monokuma as well.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
And then in V3 you have like these like other mini Monokumas that are annoying.
We don't talk about them.
We don't. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah. I think this also plays into like the overall mystery as well, because obviously we've been talking about individual cases, but like obviously the game has a greater mystery as well. And while the how is definitely also like what hooks people in, generally like the best like ones are like, why is this death game being held? Why is this person doing this?
Yeah.
And I think this is actually something that Danganronpa specifically is less good at compared to their individual cases. In general, I feel like, with the exception of Danganronpa 2, the why is generally weaker than a lot of the individual cases that they have.
I think that's a tricky one, because the why is definitely, I would agree with you that the why is a little weaker, but I feel like there's I don't know, iconic. It's a bit iconic, I guess I could say, for Danganronpa. I don't want to spoil it. It's kind of hard to do so without it.
Right.
But it's like you look at like the Danganronpa and like the overall mysteries, and it's like, dang, that was kind of cool. Like, there's a lot of like big, I guess plot twists is what I would call it. There's a lot of plot twists when it comes to like final chapters of Danganronpa, or just any of these games in general, because people love plot twists. It throws you through a loop. You're always thinking about something else, and a lot of the time the plot twists are there right in front of you, but it's not obvious until like the final moments.
Yeah, and like we can discuss that a lot more in depth if we ever get to our Masterminds video episode.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like, at least for me, like, the why in Danganronpa is like in like the overall mystery is not as impactful. Like the actual like twists and mechanics are really, really good, but again, like for me, like what sticks is like, why is this death game being held? And at least to me personally, you can totally disagree and go off against me if you want, but it's just not as compelling as even comparing to like other series like Zero Escape and 999 / Virtue / Reward. Especially 999, I think has like the best why for the overall mysteries of the games I've played.
It does. I would agree with you there. The why, it's so I don't want to. We can't go into detail. Yeah. But let's just say like the multiple endings of it. I'll just say the multiple endings matter. That's all I can really say is the multiple endings matter. That's all I can say without spoiling it. Oh my gosh. But I would agree. The overall mystery, like from Zero Escape, I don't even know how you come up with something like that. Like it's insane. It's actually insane. Like, it's confusing. So wild. It's even confusing. Like it's, honestly, it's so confusing, but like it just works.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like when Virtue's Last Reward had its ending, I literally did not like understand the chart. You know the chart until like literally a month later. Yeah. Like, oh my goodness, like.
that was me after the chart with Nirvana Initiative.
Oh.
There's a plot twist, right? There's a plot twist in Nirvana Initiative, and anybody who's played the game knows exactly what I'm talking about. And
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I had to sit there and be like, no, wait, but that doesn't. Wait, so that was. I'm just sitting there like, I'm just like, but I'm trying to like figure out in my head. I'm actually just sitting down. I remember I was streaming. I had to sit down for like 20 minutes and just walk myself through it because I was like, "There's no way."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was a wild experience, honestly.
It was like some of these twists in these games literally blow your mind, and you're just sitting there with your mouth wide open, like, "There's no way."
Yeah. I will say on the twist for Nirvana, and okay, actually I can't say that. Never mind. Anyways, what cut? Okay, 57. Anyways, yeah. Generally, like, I don't know, when it comes to like again 999, like the why they handle that the best in any. Why this thing is being held, it's the best in any game I've ever played, and that's personally why it's still my favorite, honestly. Besides everything else that is amazing about it. But yeah.
I would 100% agree with you there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh wow, we've been talking for like an hour.
It's really it really has been an hour. That's crazy.
I could have sworn it was like only 30 minutes, but I guess time flies when you're talking about something you're passionate about, huh?
So true.
But yeah. We're going to end it here because I think if we don't, we're literally going to go 2 hours and the views will tank. But
that, and I don't think I can prevent myself from spoiling.
Yeah,
it's been hard.
We're going to get spoilers. So yeah, if y'all like this, we'll have an episode 2 where we delve more deep and we'll be explicit about spoilers, spoiling everything. So if you did enjoy this, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that jazz. Not only to my channel, but to Z's channel as well. The link will be in the description down below. This was so much fun. Oh my goodness. I am so glad I decided to do this, actually. And yeah, always happy to have you on.
Oh, for sure. I'm always happy to come on. This was definitely a lot of fun because I know there's not many other people I can, chat with about these things because I have some friends that are just like, oh, I've played like the first Ace Attorney, and that's it. I'm like, what do you mean you've only played the first one? What about all the other ones?
Yeah, right?
And it's just like, dang, there's not many other people who just are interested in this genre type of game. So yeah, it's really fun getting to chat about it. Definitely. And hopefully we'll be able to do so in the future. But yeah. This is DTM signing off. Thank you again, Z's. And let us know down in the comments, I guess, what's your favorite mystery / murder / death game. Again, totally getting demonetized, but it's okay. Let us know down in the comments. And yeah, hope you all have an amazing rest of the day. And see you all next time. Bye, everyone. Bye.